Okay, everyone, so today we're going to continue on coding our website here, and we're going to start using some Ajax to call and populate our comment section with the comments from the database right away here. So let's jump into the code. First, you just got to remember to start your XAMPP MySQL, at least in Apache, if you want to be able to see your PHPMyAdmin, I believe. And so basically we left off here with the code. Yeah, so here's our server and here's our index. And oh, did we get an error down here actually? What is this saying? Connection refused. Oh, I see. I believe that was from previously when I didn't have this running. So let's just confirm that this still works. So let's turn our server back on. So there we go, it's running. And then we can go to our Chrome, refresh this. And yeah, we got everything working okay here from last time. So that's good. So essentially what we're going to want to do is first we can turn our server off. And we can scroll here. So in our body, we're going to want to call what's called an onload function, or event, sorry. And in that event, we're going to have a function. And we can call this function something like load comments, because that's exactly what we're doing. Just like that. And instead of having the comments connected on, or having the comments all loaded up on this page, what we're going to do is have them on a different file so that we can just organize the code a little better. So we can just call this file functions.js, and we can put all our functions there. And if we open this up, there it is. So essentially here we can simply make a function and call it load comments. And within this function is where we're going to do all the Ajax and stuff. But before we get to that, we're going to want to include that script at the top here with the script tags. And we can just give it a source right here. So source equals, and we will just reference the functions.js. And that's where we're going to call this function load comments from. And essentially we're going to work inside this comments div class here. So right now this is sort of a placeholder, and we're actually going to be able to get rid of most of this now because it was just sort of a placeholder for us. But now we're going to dynamically generate this portion from the database. So what I'm going to do is we can just go right ahead and just delete that right now. And on load, we're going to call this load comments function. So just to make sure this is actually working, we'll just console.log something. And we can just say working. Maybe we can say it is working. So we'll save that, start up our server again. And when we have opened up the console, and if we refresh, do we get an error here? It looks like we're getting a little problem here. Oh yes. So the reason we're not actually calling, again, this is something similar we ran into before. We didn't actually make the link for the server to get here yet. So I just continually keep making this mistake, but that's why it's so handy to be able to use this network tab in the developer tools. When you're not having something load up, it's super helpful. So what we have to do is go to the server, and basically we just have to add in another link. So if we scroll down here, let me just see here, right. So we want to add it right below here. We just put it here. And we can say else if the request method is equal to get, and the request.url is equal to In this case, we will put the /functions.js, because if we look back here, that's what it's looking for. So if this is the case, we are going to essentially just respond here with the head, and we'll say 200. And we can actually include inside of that the content type. This is just another way of kind of doing the same thing. We'll just put the content type in here. Oops. Yep. Content type. And this time, this is going to be text /JavaScript. There we go. Okay. And then we will we will file system and create a read stream that is going to stream out the functions.js file, and we will pipe that in the response. And that will allow us to see our message, hopefully. Because we made a change to the server, let's restart the server, and we will refresh. And yep, so of course we removed this placeholder, and if we go to the console, it is working. So this means that we have successfully called this function onload and onload of the web page. So now we can just continue coding. Control-C to stop our server, and let's get to the actual code because that worked. So first we're going to have to make an Ajax call. So in order to do that, we can make an HTTP object, and new, this is going to be XML HTTP request. And then with that, we're going to use the XHTTP object we just made and call a method called onReadyStateChange. And we're going to set that equal to a function. And essentially here, we are going to have quite a bit of stuff going on in here. But this is going to be on the response that we want to have something. So basically, you're going to have if this.readyState is equal to 4, and this.status is equal to 200, then we're essentially going to do something. Okay, and this is where we're going to deal with our response, and we can code that out now, but we'll code it out later because it's probably going to make sense before we code out our response to sort of have our sending of our message first. So in order to do that, we will just go all the way down to the bottom here. Right after that bracket, just watching my brackets there. And with the XHTTP object, we're going to open up a GET request. And with this GET request, we are going to call, I'm just going to call the URL /home, and we want it to be asynchronous because we want it to happen at the same time here. There we go, HTTP, and we're going to send that GET request with this method. So essentially what's going on here is we're creating the XHTTP request object, and we're going to open it, send a GET request with home, and set it to true, and then send it. So in order to do this, we're going to have to make another link in our server. So in order to do that, we will just create another else if request.method equals get, and request.url equals, and this time we called it home, so we're going to go /home. Great, and then what we'll do is we'll fill this out, and we'll just again make our response status code equal to 200, and we'll include a we'll set the header as well. And again, we can just content type, comma, and this time this will be application JSON because we're going to be sending a JSON array back. As you remember from last time, in the last video, we were sending a JSON string, basically. We're going to send a JSON string around to make this work. And then what we're going to do here, and so then what we're going to do here after the sending our response is we're going to get our connection. So we're going to, just as before, so essentially what we're going to do now is instead of getting our connection here, we've already got this connection stuff up here. So we could just take this, because we don't need it there anymore, I'm going to cut it out of there, and we'll just paste it down into here, because now we want it to happen when we call this function specifically. So there it is. So we got the get connection, and then we're going to do our query, right? Select here, and we're going to return it into results. And if there's an error, we're going to throw an error. And here's what we're going to need to change here, because we're not going to do, we're not going to log it to the console. We want to send it from our backend server to the front end of the website, and we're going to do that with JSON. So I'm just going to delete that. And here we're going to just put in a variable, and I'm going to call it comments. And we're going to set that equal to, and I'll put var. And we're going to set that equal to JSON.stringify. And this is a method to turn this results array that we got into a JSON string. And what we're going to do then is send that in the response. So instead of piping it, we're just going to end and send out the comments. And this will send our comments in the response of the GET request that has /home at the end of it. And again, this comments came from this variable, which is now a string, because we turned it into a string. And what did we turn into a string? We turned the results array into a JSON string. So now all we have to do is catch that string over here and do something with it. So let's get right to that. So we just sent that JSON string from the server to our front end, and now we're going to catch it, and we're going to do something with it. So we're going to get the result, and that's going to be equal to this dot response text. There it is. Okay, and what we want to do then is I'm going to call another kind of variable here, and I'm going to call it results. I'm going to set it equal to JSON.parse, because now we want to take that string and turn it back into an object, back to a JSON object, JavaScript object notation, and we're going to parse the result into, so we're parsing this result, which is a string, taking it from a string and putting it back into an object called results. You can call those variables whatever you want, but I'm just calling it that. And then we're going to do something similar that we did before with the results.forEach, because it is just now an array object. And again, we're going to have comment and the arrow function. Okay, just like that. Boom. Okay, so now for each of these comments, we're going to need to build the comment section. Essentially what we're going to build is what needs to be here. So there could be, now this is where I'm not sure if this is the best way to do this. I feel like there might be better ways to do this. Maybe, obviously with jQuery or something like that. But I wanted to challenge, myself, and, I thought this might be useful for other people. I wanted to use just plain JavaScript and just plain Node.js to make this one. But in the future, I might redo this section or add another section of code where you can do this maybe with jQuery. But if other people have suggestions on how to do this next part I'm about to do without JavaScript or to do it better with JavaScript, that would be awesome. I'm open to suggestions. But what I'm going to do essentially is I'm going to create elements. So you can, using the DOM, the document object model. So we're going to create element. And this first thing that we're going to create is that div tag. Remember what we deleted over here basically? The div tag and the H1, H5 and H6 or whatever it was. We're essentially just going to rebuild those now with I believe the DOM. So now we're going to take the var name and set that document.create element. And the name was H5. And then we're going to get the date, and we will create a document to create an element, sorry. That was an H6, I believe. So basically, we're just building the HTML is what we're doing right now. And then the actual message, and we'll create the element. And this one was just a p tag, just a paragraph tag. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to manually give these elements we created classes, right? So these are going to be those bootstrap classes that we had created before. So we're going to set this equal to card body. And then we're going to go name.className, and we're going to set that equal to card title, and then we're going to go date.className, and we're going to set that equal to, oops, not card title, but card subtitle, and we want it to be text muted. Okay, so essentially we're just creating the HTML elements and giving them the class names down here, just doing it with JavaScript. Okay, and then we're going to essentially populate these elements now with the appropriate content. So we can go document.create text node, and we want this one. So we want the name. So we want the name with a space, and then we can concatenate onto that. Comment dot. In this case, do we call it username? I just cannot remember what I called it in the database now. So let's check it out. It's going to be here. And yeah, we called it username like that. And then we're going to create another one for the text date. So document.create text node. And this one is obviously going to say date. And we're going to concatenate onto that. Comment.date. And let's make sure, got lowercase d. There we go. And then on top of that, we're going to add the text message next, which again, document.create text node. And this one won't need a header in front of it. It'll just be the content. And here is where it's going to be comment.comment. Okay, so we have the code there. And now we just simply have to start appending these contents right here that we just got and append them to these nodes. And as you can see, this is what I mean by I feel like there probably is a better way to do this. But this will work. This will work. So all we have to do is call the append child method and append to name, text name. And to date, we just need to, again, append child, and we need the text date. And to message, we need to append, this time we need to append the message. Sorry, text message here. There we go. Good. And then what we need to do is append the Okay. And then what we need to do is take these nodes that we just appended. So we just appended the name, the date, and the comment, right, to these elements, name, date, and message. Sorry, name, date, and message. So again, we took this content and appended it to these nodes, and now we're going to take these nodes and append it to this div tag. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is to simply take node, and again, append child, and we will append name. And then we'll take node, append child, and we'll append date. And then node, and again, append child, and this time the message. Great. So now we have appended those. We have appended all the content to this div tag. All right. And now we need to actually put this in the front of our website somehow. So we're going to get element by ID. And which element are we going to get? Well, we're going to get whatever we called this ID here, because we want to put it within this div. So comments. So we're going to get the comments div tag by its ID, and we're going to append child, and this time we're going to append node, which we have just appended all the content to inside of each of these elements. So we've appended all this content to each of these elements, taken each of these elements, appended it to this div tag, and now we're going to append this div tag to this element on the front page, which is here. So we're appending it to here. And that's how we're going to get the code into the front part of our website. So all we have to do here, don't forget the semicolon, and we'll save. And then I believe we are ready to test this out. So we're going to start up our server again. And we're going to see if this actually worked the first time through. And look at that, it did. So we've got now those two comments, and you can see it's got the same, the H5, and this is the H6 with the text muted, and here's our P tag, and here's our second comment. We only have two comments. If we add in a third comment here, if we insert, and let's use, we can just use user3. They can say, hi there, and this can be whatever date we want it to be, and we hit go. So now we're going to have three entries into here. If we now refresh this page, we'll see that that third entry has now come in here as well. So in this way, we are building up our comments on the comments page with Ajax. So in the next video, we're going to use Ajax again to actually, so this is just getting the comments from the database. So the next video, we're going to insert the comments into the database, and then subsequently reload this page. Or actually, I don't know if we'll reload the page, but we'll get the comments into the database and into the comments section so that that is complete. And I think that will be the last video. So if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.